Hello and welcome to the 5 Minute Film Club, and today I'm continuing my James Bond adventure by looking at his second mission, From Russia with Love. Dr. No was a huge success when released in 1962, and a second film was put into production, and it also had its budget doubled. They chose From Russia with Love because President Kennedy had chosen the novel amongst his 10 favourite books in Life magazine. So the producers wanted to capitalise on this endorsement of the series. From Russia with Love was also the final film to be screened in the White House before his tragic trip to Texas in November 1963. From Russia with Love takes place 6 months after the events of Dr. No, and is about a mission to obtain a code-breaking device from a defecting Soviet worker, Tatiana Romanova. She has specially asked for Bond to help her defect, as she's got a crush on the 00 agent, and Bond heads out to Istanbul to meet her. However, unbeknownst to Bond, this is all an elaborate ruse by terrorist organisation Supremos S.P.E.C.T.R.E, who are out for revenge after Bond successfully killed their agent Dr. No. They've trained Irish assassin Red Grant in the specific mission of killing James Bond. I've always liked From Russia with Love, and it's mine, and I'm sure a lot of James Bond fans' favourite one of the series. Now don't get me wrong, Dr. No has some incredible moments, including of course introducing the world to James Bond. However, the story for me was a bit flat, and the villain a tad boring. In From Russia with Love we get straight into the story, and an introduction to another staple of the Bond franchise, and that's the pre-title sequence. Whereas these would become mini-missions later on, it was created here so the audience would see Sean Connery back as Bond at the start of the film, because for a really long time we are going to be introduced to the villains of the piece, including number 1, Ernst Blofeld and his White Cat. The story itself has many layers and red herrings, and thankfully Terence Young understands that it needs to take its time setting all the traps. There may be one too many baddies introduced here, but we get a corker in Rosa Klebb, who's assigned to make sure Grant actually kills Bond. She's an iconic character with a set of killer shoes, quite literally. Her sexuality is also an interesting aspect for a film in the early 60s. In the novel, Ian Fleming describes her as a lesbian, but here her sexuality is slightly less obvious. But still, characters like her weren't commonplace in films at the time. One of my big issues with Dr. No was Ursula Andress's Honey Rider. Not really her performance, but just the fact that she had no part to play in that story. However, this film is interested in fleshing out all of its characters, and thankfully that includes Bond girl Tatiana. Tatiana is being duplicitous, and having this element here already makes her more interesting than the previous film's attempt at a female lead. Something I enjoy about the film is the fact that we as an audience see and understand more than James Bond does. So we just have to sit there and tensely wait for the moment that James Bond is going to put all of this together. James Bond films, in the early days anyway, owed a huge debt to Alfred Hitchcock thrillers. Hitchcock was the master of suspense because he let the audience in on the secret before the characters in the film, and From Russia with Love follows that formula. There are more Hitchcock nods to be found later on in the film, including the train confrontation between Grant and Bond, which is a brilliant fight scene. And also, the helicopter chase is straight out of proto-Bond thriller North by Northwest. While watching From Russia with Love this time, I was struck by how effortlessly the story rolls along. However, behind the scenes, it was an absolute struggle, and the hero of this film is not, in fact, James Bond, but editor Peter Hunt. Throughout the shoot, the story was constantly changing. It was Peter Hunt who was tasked with essentially rewriting the film as it was being shot, and he is the person behind the now classic pre-titled sequence, which originally took place later on in the film, but he put it up front along with the gun barrel sequence, so audiences would see some connective tissue to Dr. No. The filming also went over budget as sets weren't finished on time, so the schedule was constantly in flux. Also, during filming, Pedro Armendariz, who brilliantly plays Bond's Istanbul contact Karim Bey, found out he had inoperable cancer, and so filming of his scenes and his dubbing work was brought forward so that he could complete the film. He sadly took his own life shortly after he completed work on From Russia with Love, but the performance he gives here is so relaxed and entertaining that it is a wonderful tribute to him.
I've had a particularly fascinating life. Would you like to hear about it? You would?
From Russia with Love is one of my favourite Bond films, and watching it again this time just solidified all my thoughts about it, and the fact that this is not just a good Bond film, it's a really good thriller. I don't think it's got one dud moment in it, and love all the performances and character beats. Sean Connery is more confident in his performance, and I think that has something to do with the calibre of the other actors, and the fact that it is higher than it was in Dr. No. He's got to up his game to match their level, and he does so, thankfully, with ease. No matter what's going on with the other characters in this film, he knows he's the one audiences have come for.
What is it?
I'll show you.
Next week, I'm moving on to my review of Goldfinger, the film that essentially changed Bond forever. And it's also the only Bond film included in my 501 must-see movies book. So please join me next Friday for my review of Goldfinger. Thank you very much, and goodbye!